first type of problem we're going to look at is using a variable, which is a letter that represents an unknown amount. And in math, instead of it being called a letter, it is called a variable. Once we create our equation, which is what we use for algebra, we are then going to solve. So if I was going to highlight my keywords, these are my 3 keywords that I want to point out so that I remember what to do during this problem. Here is my problem. For each patient they see, each doctor can get paid $80. If there are X patients on that day, the doctor will be paid $1,760 in total. So now the question I have to do first is write my equation. So this is my first step, is write my equation. Using X, which I have here, to represent the patients. How many patients are seen? So if I have X amount of patients that are paying $80, is going to equal 1,760. You could also write it as $80, X as your variable, equals 1,760. Both of these are correct, and they both mean the same thing. When there is no operation between the number and the variable, you are multiplying. Okay? So I'm going to write that as a note on the side. So when there is no operation between the number and the variable, you are multiplying. Okay, and that is always. Okay, and by operation, I mean multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. Those are your 4 basic operations. Now that we have our equation, we've used our variable, we are now going to solve. That is my second step. I'm solving. The inverse operation for multiplication is division. So I'm going to use this equation. Remember, they're both the same. I could use either one, but I'm going to use this one. So I'm going to rewrite it down here. 80x equals 1,760. I need to get x by itself. I'm going to put 80 over 80, and that becomes 1, because 80 divided by 80 equals 1. If I do something to this side of the equal sign, I must do it to the other side, which means I must divide 1,760 by 80. Okay, we've discussed that we cannot figure out the problem in this way. I now need to set up my division problem the way I typically would when we solve long division. So I'm going to make my house. Remember, your first number goes inside your house, 1,760. Your second number, which in this case is your bottom number, goes outside the house. Okay? So now we're dealing with 80 and 1,760. Now I have to ask myself, how many times does 80 go into 1? Or 80 times what is closest to 1? Well, we all know that there is no answer to that, so it would be 0. Because 0 times 80 is 0. So 1 minus 0 is 1. On the side, I'm going to go ahead and do a few of the factors for 80. 80 times 1 is 80. 80 times 2 is 160. 80 times 3. What's 8 times 3? 24? 240. 80 times 4. Thank you. 320. All right. So this will help me in solving the remainder of my problem. Remember, the saying we have is, does McDonald's sell burgers? Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. I'm going to bring down my 7. Can 80 go into 17? No, it cannot. So again, I'm putting a 0. 0 times 80, again, I'm subtracting 0. I'm now left with 17. I'm going to again bring down the next number, which is 6. 176. If I look over here, where I've done out some of the multiplication, what number or what multiple is closest to 176 without going over? Remember, it cannot be bigger than 176. So 80 times what is close to 176? I could choose 80, but the better choice would be 160. 240 is too big. I cannot subtract 240 from 176. I will get a negative answer. That does not work. So, what is the multiple? 2. So, 2 times 80 is 160. I subtract, and I get 6. 7 minus 6 gives me 1, and then 0. Now, bring down my 0. I have 160. Again, I ask myself, how many times does 80 go into 160? Well, I know from my last step that it goes in twice. So I'm going to put a 2 above on my answer part, and I know 2 times 80 is exactly 160. And now I have all zeros, which means I am done with my calculation. My answer is 22. How do I write that? Using a complete sentence. I'm going to go back into my question to help me come up with my answer. I know that it's each patient and the doctor is going to be paid this amount. So, if the doctor sees, we found our answer, right? X amount of patients, but now we know it's 22. 22 patients. On that day, they will be paid $1,760. Here is my answer in a written response, which completely satisfies what I am asked to solve.